What's up guys, Sio here with week 5 of the NES. This week we're taking on the Miami Heatran, coached by Nedo. Again, all the important links will be down below. If you skip my team builder, I would recommend checking it out, just because obviously that's another video for you guys to watch for the league stuff, and it's cool. I also get a little bit more in-depth with what I'm actually bringing, so if you have any questions for that, please check out the team builder. But I'm bringing AV Lantern with Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Scald, and Ice Beam. Specs Cryogonal with Freeze Dry, Ice Beam. I decided to just keep the Ice Beam. Freeze Dry, Ice Beam, Flash Cannon, and Hidden Power Fire. Mega Lopunny has Fake Out, Protect, Return, and Fire Punch. Protect was to catch a Scarfed Mienshao on a high jump kick, which he unfortunately didn't end up bringing. I have a standard Fizdef leftover Scarm with Stealth Rock, Spikes, Whirlwind, and Roost, since his only form of hazard removal is a potential Immunity Gliscor or Defog Scizor. Kebia Berry Sylveon meant to catch Gengar with Hyper Voice, Psyshock, Hidden Power Rock, and Wish. Hidden Power Rock was for Moltres, which didn't end up coming. And Aromatisse is just a pretty standard Scarf with U-Turn, Fire Punch, Rock Slide, and EQ. He also had Mienshao, Stoutland, Alolan, Exeggutor, Moltres, and Ampharos. This is pretty similar to the team I expected him to bring. I'm a little surprised to actually see Aromatisse, but I did plan pretty heavily for it because it turns out that it's a decent counter, I guess, to make a Lopunny. I expected Gengar and Weavile for sure because they're super fast, hard-hitting threats. Gengar being nerfed in Gen 7 and only having Cursed Body instead of Levitate makes it a little bit easier for me to deal with, because if it's not Scarfed I can just kill it with Darmanitan EQ, and if it is Scarfed I can kind of just figure out what it's going to lock itself into and play accordingly. Vaporeon and Scizor I both have pretty good familiarity with from my Season 1 team. I had regular Scizor instead of Mega Scizor, but in my opinion regular Scizor is kind of better anyway. So I have experience with the good one. Shots fired. Gliscor I expect to kind of just be a Rocks wall, maybe having Swords Dance if he thinks it has a good matchup, which it kind of sort of does, I guess. It doesn't have the best matchup since I can play around it. But I'm just going to go ahead and lead Skarmory, and if he decides to lead Gengar or Aromatisse to try to counter that, I'll just play around it, I guess. But otherwise I get Stealth Rocks or Spikes up. As you can see, he leads Gengar. Right away I'm expecting a Thunderbolt because there's no reason for me not to. So I'm just going to go into Lantern. If he predicts and goes for a Sludge Bomb or something, then that's a good play on his part, but I'll just play it safe. And he goes for the Thunderbolt, which is nice. No reason for me not to Volt Switch. If he goes into Gliscor, I'm fully Fizdef, so I'm actually able to take an EQ, and I should be able to kill it or do significant damage with an Ice Beam. But I'm just going to go for a Volt Switch as he goes into Vaporeon. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into Lopunny at this point. I'm going to get a Fake Out off on something. I figure it's probably either going to be the Scizor or the Aromatisse. But I'm going to get a Fake Out off on something which allows me to outspeed anything on his team that's not Scarfed. Which sounds pretty good to me. He shows leftovers there, which isn't really surprising, but good. So judging by that damage, it looks like he's a fully Fizdef Aromatisse. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch out directly. I could go aggressively into Cryogonal if I want to, since I have Specs Flash Cannon to kind of hit this thing pretty hard. I don't want to go into Scarm because obviously this thing could get Thunderbolt and that could hurt. And Sylveon doesn't really do very much right now. It can later, but it's not going to do anything right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and double into Darmanitan, predicting a Moonblast on Lopunny. Since Fire is his fairy, I get to get a free U-turn off here. He goes into Gliscor, which is kind of what I expected. And I'll just go straight into Scarm here, because Gliscor can't really do anything to Skarmory. If he sets up, I can just Whirlwind him out. Sorry. If he sets up, I can Whirlwind him out. If he sets up Rocks, whatever. Like, I have two things that are weak to it, but they're the only two things on my roster that are weak to Rocks, so I'm not really tripping on it. I don't have removal, but I didn't really think I needed it this week, so whatever. But I'm just going to go ahead and get my Rocks and Spikes up if I can, potentially. He shows he's Toxic Orb here, so he's not going to be able to defog him, which is nice. and him knocking off my leftovers isn't really a big deal because I still have Roost anyway. So he doubles into Gengar here, so I'm just going to again make the safe play into Lantern because there's no reason not to. Even without SPDF investment, just regular AV Lantern is able to take a 3-hit KO from there. I'm guessing he keeps switching into Vaporeon because he's predicting me to go for a Scald against Gengar. But I know full well that Vaporeon gets Water Absorb and most likely is running it since Hydration's not really super useful outside of Rain, I guess. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into Cryogonal here, and I'll play it safe and go for a Freeze Dry here. On the off chance that he thinks he's able to stay in. I predict him to switch out, but I just want to play it safe and go for a Freeze Dry. I'm fully expecting Mega Scizor to come in, but I don't want to go straight for an HP Fire because I don't want to reveal it right away. He actually stays in, which is pretty surprising to me. The crit in no universe mattered. Even without specs, I'm pretty sure it was a kill from there. With specs, it was like 60%, and the crit obviously made it pretty big. So he goes into Scizor on the double. I don't want to take a Bullet Punch, obviously. There's zero reason for me to. So I'm just going to go into Darmanitan. He goes for an Iron Head, which I guess is a little bit more aggressive. Because if I wasn't specs, I could have very easily just gone for the HP Fire there. But good thing Fire also resists Steel, because I was able to take that pretty well. And I'm just going to go for the safe Fire Punch, because even to Gliscor, it does a decent chunk of damage. No reason for me to stay in. I predicted an Earthquake, and he goes for the Aerial Ace. I guess predicting Lopunny to come straight in. I feel like that would have been an extremely aggressive double for me to make, but it's a good prep on his part to have the Flying Stab for Gliscor. And obviously it does a significant amount of damage to Cryogonal anyway, so it's good prep on his part. So it's at this point that I kind of need to figure out what I want to lock myself into. I didn't really have this dilemma as much the first time because I was like, I'm just going to play it safe, see how he wants to react to it, and then play accordingly. But here I'm actually kind of having a dilemma on what I want to go for. The obvious move is to just hit this thing with an Ice Beam and just completely nuke it to the next dimension. But I know that, and he knows that, and everyone watching this video probably knows that, so I'm not going to go for that because that's just like extremely obvious, and if I overpredict on this one, then that's okay. He made a good play to stay in, but I'm predicting him to switch out into something. So I guess my logic here is, do I want to lock myself into Flash Cannon and hit Aromatisse and Weavile super effectively, or do I want to lock myself into HP Fire and hit Scizor or Weavile effectively, pretty much? Gengar switching in here is actually a decent play too, because Gengar has somewhat good SPDF and can probably take something and fire back. We already know it's Scarf, so it's definitely going to outspeed. I mean, I guess we don't know it's Scarfed, but I'm like 99% sure that it's Scarfed, so I'm just playing it like it is. So I debate here for a little while on if I want to go for the Flash Cannon or the HP Fire. And I ultimately end up settling on going for the HP Fire because I figure if he is going to go into Scizor and potentially try to defog, this would be a good time to do it. If he sees me going for an Ice Beam, switches in, gets the defog off, and then is able to kind of play accordingly. So I predict that to be the most likely play here. I know he's not going to stay in, and he obviously switches out, and he does go into the Mega Scizor, and I am able to catch it with a Specs HP Fire. Again, the Specs actually didn't really matter at all, because it would have killed without him. But it's okay. I wanted to guarantee the damage, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get Chip on this thing before it came in. But getting it to drop right away is pretty nice, and guarantees that these spikes and rocks are here to stay, which is actually pretty important for me. Again, he brings in Gengar. Again, there's no reason for me not to go Lantern. He hasn't shown anything that can really hit me yet. I get pretty lucky with Sludge Bombs and ended up taking 2 without poison, so I'm able to Volt Switch out of there, go into Lopunny. It's at this point that I can fake out and kill Gengar, or fake out and do significant damage to pretty much anything. Nothing's actually really going to take a ton of damage from the fake out specifically, but switching into rocks and or spikes and or the fake out could potentially do a shit ton of stuff. So as you can see, Aromatisse takes 24% from hazards and then an extra 22%, and it's suddenly below half. So hazards are definitely coming back to bite him a little bit here. It's at this point that I realize that I don't really need Lantern anymore. If he wants to try to go for a Thunderbolt, I guess I can try to get some damage off. He goes for a Wish here, so I'm predicting a Wish pass into Gliscor to potentially try to wall me a little bit more. Obviously I have Cryogonal to deal with it, and little does he know I actually have Lantern to deal with it as well. But I predicted him to try to play aggressively here since he was definitely on the back foot, down 6-4, and with multiple hazards up on his side of the field. So I go for the Ice Beam here, and it doesn't really do very much. I would have been better off just trying to Thunderbolt or something if I predicted Aromatisse to stay in, but I didn't want to give Gliscor the free switch and potentially a setup opportunity. So unfortunately Lantern drops. I am not able to preserve a 6-0. I wasn't really trying to at this point. I was just trying to play it safe and win, but he gets Aromatisse back up to full, which is actually kind of annoying because this thing's bulky enough to be able to take like any one hit that I need it to, or that he needs it to, and fire back. So I'm just going to go into Cryogonal here and try to just get flash cannons off. There's really no reason for me not to spam flash cannon at this point, because anything that switches in is 2-hit KO'd, and this thing is also 2-hit KO'd if it stays in. You'll see after the rocks that does 47%, and even with toxic stalling he's not going to be able to, or toxic heal stalling I guess I should say, he's not going to be able to stall this out because flash cannon just means he drops, and then he just goes back into Gengar because it's his offense. Luckily the spikes and rocks means that this is actually the last time that he's going to be able to do this, so I just need to basically switch into something that can take 2 hits guaranteed from Gengar at this point. I decided to go Sylveon because I have the Kebia Berry, and if he goes for Sludge Wave I can just double at that point into Skarmory, and then just start whirlwinding and killing stuff. At that point I would pretty much seal it up. He goes for Focus Blast, which is kind of surprising. It misses, which is not surprising at all because that's what Focus Blast does. So now I'm just going to go for a Psyshock and get a kill. Focus Blast hits and does nothing because I'm a Sylveon. I guess I actually went for Hyper Voice. Oh, that's right. I didn't want Weavile to catch me on a Psyshock, I guess. And there's no reason not to Hyper Voice. So for 2 weeks, Sylveon has killed a Mega Aggron and a Gengar, which is kind of funny. Sylveon at this point just does a ton of damage to stuff, so I'm just going to keep it in. I'm actually going to go for a Wish Pass here because I am bulky enough Spidef-wise to be able to take anything. And Cryogonal's natural Spidef of like 135 allows me to take that Stab Moonblast perfectly and get healed up to 65%, which is nice. Or get healed up 65% to 84%, which is even nicer, I guess. And to this point I just decided to lock myself in a Flash Cannon because obviously Fairy and Ice are both weak to Steel. He's not doing anything with Moonblast, and thankfully he doesn't get the Spidef drop, or the Spitac drop, I guess. If he did, I would have just switched out and it would have been whatever, but Cryogonal picks up another kill. If you're keeping track at home, that's 4 kills this week. And I actually make a little bit of a misplay here, I guess. I want to scout and see if this thing is scarfed or not. So I actually decided to just sack my Cryogonal here. I figure if he does go for something and I see the Life Orb damage, which I'm going to, that means I could just play around it with Fake Out spam and stall and stuff. Whoops. I faded the wrong thing. Okay, I'm not going to be able to unfade the right thing because I didn't name that right. There we go. There we go. Okay, we are fine. Live editing, folks. So he knocked off my choice specs and took Life Orb damage, so he's obviously just going to die here at this point because I can just Fake Out spam, switch into something, and then Fake Out and kill it again. I, in hindsight, actually should have just gone into Skarmory, who could have just Roost stalled if it was Life Orb. but I just didn't want to really risk it. I predicted actually an Icicle Crash or something there, but I'm able to switch into Sylveon on the resisted hit and then just switch out to Skarmory and take the Icicle Crash because it's neutral. I could even take another one after and Roost off if I needed to, and if I got flinched, it's whatever, I'll just go into Lopunny and clean up from there. But we actually get our biggest win in the NES so far, which is nice. I've never had a 4-0. Everything's always been a 3-0 or worse. So that was kind of nice. I feel like I played pretty well this game, and good job to Nido. I feel like he has a very, very, very good roster, and I just managed to kind of match up pretty well against it. Cryogonal getting 4 kills was something that did not even come close to happening in any practice game, so that's pretty cool. Honestly, Skarmory and Lopunny actually did a lot more work in practice than they ended up doing in this game, but that's okay, because they still cleaned up. Next week, we take on the Nottingham Forest Curse, coached by Wordfell. It should be an interesting game. I haven't actually started prep for it yet, but I know she has a couple of things that kind of seemed like directly counter-teaming to me, like drafting Salazzle to be able to Toxic my Skarmory, and, well, Mega Gardevoir wasn't a counter-team because she drafted that like first overall, but it's a threat that I need to prep for. So yeah, I guess I will see you guys next week with that battle. Have a good one.